News on the flip side. It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcast. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The News on the Flip Side, in the category of politics and news. News on the Flip Side is a much different news and political program, which is not deemed as opinion news. Listen as anchor host Joe Montaldo brings you just the facts from trusted sources, which will allow you, the people, to make up your own minds on the various stories being reported on. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the News on the Flip Side in the category of news and politics. That's podcastawards.com. Please take a moment and vote now.
Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Also, thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook. Also specializes in the horror genre, but does phenomenal commission pieces of any sort. Sorry, guys. So, you notice we started the show with the podcast awards. They are back up and at it, and you're going to start seeing that coming across the network. So you're going to be catching little promos here and there. So that was the first one, and we'll play another one at the end of the show. So tonight, was just so happy to welcome the return of our dear friend, Michael Carter. He's going to be discussing his latest book, Enlightenment, and it's going to be an incredible conversation about spirituality, just hope, awareness, our spiritual evolution. It's always just so much fun having him on, and we always have great conversations. And realistically, we've got so much ground to cover, but I think this is something that everybody can relate to. So without further ado, my friend, Reverend Michael Carter.
Hey, Michelle. Boy, it's been a long time. I don't know. I'm so used to coming on that when a few months go by, I'm like, well, what are we going on? What's going on? But
no, I love it.
You spoiled me.
I know. We love you, though. And Amelia is just under the weather. And she's like, you sent her my love.
Oh, my God. Yes. You reminded. Well, please tell her. Maybe she's listening in. If not, please give her my warm regards, and I'll send her some prayers and energy.
Oh, I absolutely will. I know she just hates missing the shows. And it's always difficult when it's somebody that you know so well. You're a frequent flyer here. So we love it.
In more ways than one.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
In more ways than one. So how are you? How you doing?
I'm okay. Busy, just busy, always busy. But
yes, I know.
I've been slacking off on the work part.
Are you guys getting the hot weather too?
We are. It's been brutal. Lots of rain as well, which is just
same here. It was raining now. I thought we I was hoping we wouldn't, but I thought we were going to get, some technical difficulties because it's been so much. It's thunderstorms have been heavy. It's like a rainforest here where I am.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, and I did some research, and thousands of years ago, this part of North Carolina, well, the Southeast actually, was a rainforest. And, it's so green and luscious. It reminds me of pictures I've seen of Ireland. But we get a lot of rain, and it's almost like we're reverting back to that. It's interesting.
I know, but that's okay. We can
Yeah,
use some of that. We can use it. I love it.
It's all good. It's all
Good for
good.
grounding.
Yeah, well, living in New York City for almost 30 years, it's good to see greenery. It's good to walk in the grass. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Hug a tree.
Well, and they hug me back.
They do.
They're right out here. Yes, it's really interesting, and being able to go back and forth, because I'm one of those kind of people that I can survive a city. I can hang out around all the concrete. But this part of my life, I've been here, and it's really been the gift that keeps on giving.
Right. I love it. I grew up around the mountains and the forests, and I did a faux pas with my spelling. I had to correct it. I'm going to be doing editing after the show going, what was I thinking with this word?
Oh.
Did I get it right this time? Yeah, I think so. My God. Anyway, I know. Yeah, what can I say? I'm scattered.
That's a good way to put it. I'm scattered.
Scattered.
Scattered's okay.
It is.
It's a chaos. Like if someone came, this is my office. This is pretty neat, but it's papers and books. But I know it's controlled chaos. It's controlled scatterness, because I know where things are.
That's what
people would say, man, you need help. But as long as I can get to it,
that's right.
It's all good.
It keeps everybody out of my space, because I know where everything is as well.
Clutter
and organized chaos. Yeah.
It is. Now there are times when I do have to straighten it up. If I can't find something, that means I need to really just kind of rearrange stuff. But whatever works. I have friends that things are in file cabinets and you can just pull it out and go right to it. I think that's admirable. It's just not the way I operate.
I know. I love it. Now you've written a new book. I'm excited to talk about all of this, because you and I have talked about stuff like this off and on, and we've touched on it on probably just about every show we've done, because everything connects.
Exactly.
Right? It always connects, no matter what we talk about.
It's all interrelated. I remember the shift in thank you for putting it up. I remember, I would do, pre-COVID, I was doing, some conferences, and they were UFO conferences. Nothing wrong with that. Right. Now you got people who are at their expertise is Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Their expertise is the paranormal. Expertise is UFOs. And I'm glad that these disciplines are coming together and instead of we being in silos, but they're all connected. They're all connected to the inner life, to the spiritual, if I can use those words. Yes. And so we need to bring it in under one umbrella, and it also gets people talking to each other instead of just being kind of isolated. So we're living in an exciting time. And so, you can't talk about any of those topics without, whether it's spiritualism, awareness, I'm looking at whether it's metaphysics, paranormal, ufology. You can't talk about one without crossing boundaries into the other. I think that's exciting, and I think it's necessary.
I agree with you as well, because I truly believe that this isn't just a modern thing, because I think right now it's extremely important, because I'm just seeing so many people are just waking up. It's just like these epiphanies are happening all over the place. And I'm just like, oh, welcome. Because,
Yes.
some of us picked up on it pretty early on. I think there's a lot of people who don't necessarily know that there are differences between enlightenment and spirituality and religion. Like there are differences as much as there are similarities. And I think people have a hard time with change. They don't maybe recognize that, hey, wait, I think I'm waking up. I think I'm just realizing things like synchronicities. And, you get to look for things. And I see synchronicities, I go out of my mind. I'm just like, oh, that's fantastic. Like you start really having fun with it and you don't have to fear it. But people seem to.
You
don't like change, Michael.
No question. Human, the only person that likes change is a wet baby. You've heard it said. But, I think that once it starts happening a little more, like I know some friends of mine, and they're just kind of awakening deeper and deeper truths about themselves and the world around them. And when they get synchronicities, they're still blown away. And I love the freshness of it and what have you. But then after a while, you get it that's not an anomaly. This is the natural way of life.
Right.
When you are, when you start peeling the onion, that the right person comes your way when you need it, the right book, the right opportunity, and it blows you out of the way because sometimes you think it's too good to be true, or you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, or do I deserve this, or those kinds of things. And then when you start having these so-called coincidences, these synchronicities, and you see how your life opens up and advances, I think you get used to it. But you are right, change is difficult, but you get to realize, that's the only constant in life is change.
It's true. So what made you decide to write this book?
I was ashamed because I was lazy.
Oh, wow. I was saying, because you're this UFO guy, ancient aliens, and then all of a sudden, wham!
This is the second evolution. I'll tell you. Okay. The first time I wrote those 2 UFO books on UFOs and religion, and then I said, I don't want to be known as the UFO minister, which I am known as, but I didn't want to. I was fighting it because I thought I was putting myself in a box. And so I wrote a book, as you know, on prayer and healing, and I wrote a meditation manual.
Right.
So, and then, I wrote the other UFO books, but it takes time to write a book, and I can be lazy. I was like, I don't want to be bothered. And about 3 or 4 people said, you should put a book together of your sermons. And, I said, well, yeah, I will. And then my excuse was, well, no one's really going to want to read a book of sermons by me. I was just kind of self-deprecating, but I was really kind of lazy. And then it kept coming. And I said to the universe, I said, oh God, if I do this book, I don't have a publisher. I got to go to Amazon again, which I don't mind, and then got to do all the tech stuff to get it done. I have people help me with that. So if you really want this book to come through me, let me know. And that was a cop-out too, because it's not about them, it's about me accepting the responsibility. But then right in my congregation, there has been a professional editor who's been in my church since I've been there. And I had no idea. And he brought it up. And so I didn't have an excuse anymore. The editor was there. And he was very encouraging. He was reasonably priced. He's good at what he does. I wish I'd found him with all the typos and stuff in my first book, because I didn't have a professional editor. And so I didn't have an excuse anymore. And he just helped me lay it out. He said, get your sermons, put them under a certain topic. And the topics are in the book. There's spiritual growth, religion and spirituality. I think I got something on, I just happen to have it here. What were the topics? Anyway, that's the answer to your question, was just that I got something on justice, a section on religion, spiritual growth, holidays, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so I didn't have an excuse anymore. And it took me a few months because I was busy with other stuff and got it out. It's in paperback, first hardcover I've ever done.
Wow.
And of course it's on ebook, Kindle.
Right.
So,
right.
but I just wanted to get out of the box.
Right.
Yes, I'm my specialty is UFOs and the Bible, but I am a minister, so it's spirituality,
Yes.
and people can see me in a different light.
Right. I love it. I think it's fantastic. So let's start dissecting everything a little bit. Let's talk enlightenment. If somebody, let's break it down, and maybe people could figure out, well, I'm this, or I'm this, or how do I become this, or what are the benefits?
Yeah.
And okay, so let's start with enlightenment.
Okay. I put the quote on in front of the book by the late Thich Nhat Hanh. Enlightenment is when a wave realizes it's part of the ocean. So part of enlightenment is, I wish I had thought of that. It's part of that is that I see through the illusion of separation, whether it's race, whether it's sexuality, whether my hair is curly and coarse, or your hair is, that means nothing.
Right.
In the long run, so that when you can see that, that a light goes on. There's something about being enlightened that way. And I forget, but there was a book
a wake-up call.
Well, but that you get to see through the BS, through all the stuff that we use to separate each other. You're a red state, I'm a blue state, you're a Trumpian, I'm not, you're gay, you're trans. That means nothing in the scheme of things. So it's seeing differently. And it's also, I forget the name of the author, but it's a wonderful book. You can Google. It's called After Enlightenment, The Laundry, which means that enlightenment doesn't mean that I'm better than you or that I've ascended or whatever. And I still have to get up and do the laundry.
I transformed a little bit.
Yeah, I got to pay my mortgage. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you got a relationship, you got to work to keep that going. If you're a parent, so you still have to do the everyday tasks of being a human being, but you do them in a different way because you see the world differently.
Right.
And so that was always something that I've strived for. How can I be me fully without stopping you from being you?
Right. And that's like ancient wisdom too, isn't it? Like
it's all ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
You're right. And it's a struggle. I don't know the answer to it, but but the struggle is in the answer. I don't mean struggle like, oh God, no, but I mean like, we're human beings. Some days are better than others.
It's growth.
It's spiritual growth. Right. It's a spiritual maturity. And so to me, that's what enlightenment means. And so it's just the everyday. How do I treat my neighbor? How do I flip the bird to someone who cuts in front of me in traffic? Or do I just calm down and say, okay, it's all right, it's not personal? You know what I'm saying? Do I return anger for anger, or in that moment, do I just take a breath? And
that's a tough one. Let me tell you, if you had a voice recorder in my car when I was driving, you'd be like, "Who is this person?"
Same thing here. I would say, "Is that Reverend Carter?" But it's but that's the everyday of life that we're not. With the 12 steps, I went into the 12 steps for codependency. But they work for so many things, they work for sex addiction and alcoholism and what have you. But they always say progress, not perfection. It's not about being perfect. It's about noticing the progress you make each day. And today I may have walked through the life like a saint. Unlikely, but I may have. And tomorrow I may get in a shouting match with someone. But that's okay. It's that I'm aware.
Right.
so the same things don't trigger me. It's progress.
Right.
In other words, someone may press my button and I may get angry, but I'm aware and I say, Michael, calm it down.
Right.
It's not a big deal.
Right.
As opposed to just reacting and at the end of the day feeling like, you know what, because I'm ashamed or I could have handled it differently.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'll start getting to comments while because we get ahead pretty darn quick. So
I know.
hello, everybody. I love you all for joining me in chat room. Thank you. I'd like to put all your comments up, and I may just sort of put them up here and there. Lady Spider Witch, oh my gosh, I get all of this. I have been through so much toxicity from people. It has twisted me into a different person. I feel different and jaded, but seeing through the BS. And I feel like I'm the one who's forced to have to fix it all. And I'm very tired of that.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. You do not have to be the one.
Right.
You have to let people be people.
Right.
And that way you take pressure and stress off of yourself. You're not the savior. You're not the rescuer. You don't have to fix it. You just stay in your lane and try not to worry about things you can't control.
Don't be in the fast lane all the time because that really pees people off.
Yes, stay in your lane. Let people make mistakes.
Right.
You know, it's hard enough to live your life than how to be controlling other people's lives. Because a lot of it is about feeling not in control.
Right.
And we're not. But it's hard. That's scary.
Exactly.
To know that you're really not in control. But the only thing you're in control of is your responses. Now, notice I didn't say reactions.
No.
Your responses, because you don't want to react. You want to respond to life and situations.
Mish says, I've learned recently our words, even if not heard, can affect the person. It must be like a frequency, a vibe, expressions and things of that nature. But you're right. Yeah. We have no control over anything, but how we respond to the situation is the only thing we have control over. So that falls on us. We're responsible for our own actions.
Yes. And that's the key. I remember hearing a speaker say, I believe in the one to a box theory. He said at the end of your life, if you're buried, maybe you get cremated, but he used the example of being buried. The only person who gets in the coffin is you, because that's all you're responsible for, because it's your life. Hello, Corin. And so that made a lot of sense to me. And I'll tell you what helped me a lot, okay? And I don't do it every day. Dolly! Hello, Dolly.
I always do that.
Okay,
She's probably tired of it.
No,
it's not when you do it, just when I do it. That's all the time.
But I got to tell you, it's difficult, but it can be done. The things that helped me were that still do are really trying not to worry about what I can't control, because that causes a lot of stress for me, and giving up the need as much as possible to be right. Once you give those up, or at least cut back on that, my life has changed completely. I don't get triggered so much, and yes, we all like to be right about certain things. I'm not saying that's wrong, but to the point where you got to argue with someone. Once you give that up, because some people have the need to be right. They just, that their whole life is about, I'm right. And that's okay, but that's hard to do. And people don't like to be around people like that. But once there was a guy at my church who every sermon I did, after we do the sermon and the closing words, I go to the front of the church and shake everybody's hand as they go out. And almost every Sunday, he would say, I want to talk to you about that. I'm not sure I agree with that, and blah, 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 blah. And I fell for the trap, and I'm winding up explaining my sermons every Sunday. And after a while, I get it that this guy just wanted to argue. And one day I said to him, I'm not arguing with you. If, this didn't resonate with you, maybe next Sunday's sermon will. But it just took so much stress off of me, and he backed off. But I don't, if you need to be right, that's okay. But it takes two to argue, and I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's not jumping in the ring.
Yeah. If you
Right.
don't agree with something I say, it's okay. I don't have to convince you because I don't have to be right. Now, he was frustrated a bit because he wanted that give and take, but I just gave up. It's too draining. I'm too old now to be doing that.
And you know what? I don't care.
Yeah, come next Sunday.
I
Maybe
know.
you'll agree
Right.
with it. But
So
some people need that friction to get it. It's
right.
not wrong. It's just that I
Well,
don't
it's not right
I don't
either.
have the energy to do it anymore.
No, and you don't need that in your space. It
No.
insults your essence and insults your intelligence, and that to me, there's no room for it. So essentially, you need to find a level of mindfulness, and in doing that, you will find a level of tranquility.
Yes, because the whole goal is inner peace. I don't
Right.
care I don't care whether you're atheist, Christian, Buddhist, agnostic.
Mm,
We're all now we may be looking for it in different places. We may be looking for it in the wrong places. But
right.
most people that I know, that's what they're looking for. They may not even say it that way, but
Right.
they're looking for some peace.
Right.
Because if I'm at peace, then my world will be at peace.
Right.
I don't
Right.
know. I mean, not the whole 9 billion people, because everybody's at a different frequency. But
Mm,
you'll be a peaceful person, and you'll attract to you what you need because you don't have that frenetic energy, that controlling energy, that that kind of aggravation, that kind of thing.
So it sort of goes back to the old saying, "What you put out comes back to you."
Sure. That and that's not philosophy. That's physics.
Right.
It's metaphysics. And so
Right.
yeah, we attract what we are.
So love and
And
light, love and light. That's what you
yeah,
want to
yeah,
do.
and I mean look, there's an old saying, flies come to the light too. You
Right.
know, so
Right.
you will attract people who want that energy. You will attract kind of psychic vampires in a way too, but you can
Right.
always protect yourself from that.
Right.
Like I did with this guy. I just said, I'm not giving you my energy. That's what you want. You want to debate and argue everything I do, but I don't need to do that. And
Mhm.
so you are more in control than you think you are.
Mhm.
And you can just say, I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
And voila,
Seems easy,
voila.
doesn't it? It seems
You,
easy.
well, this is old
Some people
wisdom.
have a hard time though. It's just like
It's old wisdom. There's no, I don't even, people say new age. There's no such thing as new age. This is ancient wisdom being rediscovered. It's new for us. I mean, science is now discovering some things that our ancestors knew, way back in the day, and they're just
Mm,
getting it. With quantum physics is one of those things. Now,
right.
they didn't use the language that we use, but when you say you reap what you sow,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Right.
That's what you're saying, that we're in this energy field, and what you put out comes back. Quantum
Right.
physics is just getting that, but prophets and avatars and saints were saying this long before
Right.
the scientists got it. So this is not anything new. It's just being rediscovered. And
Right.
so it's a wonderful time
Right.
to see this is how people are awakening because they're tuning into this ancient wisdom.
Mhm. This is why I love going back into to different indigenous places, and meaning like the indigenous people really have it together. I know this is also part of my ancestry way back, and
Mhm.
I love the tradition. I love the oral history because they don't just say it, like they live it. To be able to, you know, this is just all over the world. When you're going back to oral history, this is something that they just kept reciting. It wasn't written down. This is storytelling.
Exactly.
Therefore, you had to really believe it, and you were living it, and they still do. The love of
Mhm.
the planet, the love of the people, the love of nature,
Mhm.
and that's what I think is just so amazing about
Yes.
going back and just seeing these traditions and this knowledge coming forward and staying amongst their own groups of people. it's like traditions that we try to pass on, like to my children. It's like my mother and my grandparents did things with my parents did things with us, and I've tried to instill that into my own children as they were growing up. And I think that's how these sort of things, being enlightened and spiritual. I remember my son at 8 years old asking me, if I, out of the blue, he goes, "Are you coming back?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Where am I going?" Like, I just totally didn't clue in. He was 8. He goes, "No." He goes, "I mean, are you going to come back?" I'm like, he goes, "Again, after you die, are you coming back?" I'm like that kind of a question. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm pretty tired. I don't think I want to come back." And he goes, "Well, I'd like to come back, but I don't want to come back without you." Okay, I'll be back.
Yeah, beautiful.
But you see, like, it's just, where do they learn that? That's something that somewhere it gets embedded into you, I think.
Yeah. I mean, those probably could be past life memories, but as they get older, we kind of, the society kind of gets that out of them. That's, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Right. That kind of thing. I remember my daughter, very young, telling me about when I was the mom and my ex was that, and she was telling me this, and those kinds of things. I feel that, yes, the Aboriginal peoples all over the planet, Australia, North America, well, even
everywhere.
the Celtic folk, I mean, the people who were native to the land.
That's what I mean. The indigenous of their areas, their groups, or countries.
Yes, and they hold on to it. And when Christianity became the dominant kind of story narrative, they kept it. They just went underground with it.
Right.
And sometimes they mixed the Christianity in with
it. They did, yes.
But it survived. The indigenous wisdom, whether it's about star people, or whether it's about
all of it.
Spirits and leprechauns and fairies and the nature divas, it's all stayed when people were being persecuted. You just went underground with it.
Yes.
Or you incorporated it into the larger narrative. And so that wisdom is with us.
But that kept you aware.
It kept you aware. And even in the cultures, when we started writing and those type of things, someone said to me the other day, if you want to learn something new, go read an old book. I thought that was profound. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm going back and rereading stuff, whether it's John Mack or, just rereading other books and other authors who are here, and I haven't picked them up in ages, and I see it a different way, hits me a different way. It's old, but it's new to me.
Right.
It's like you can't step in the same river twice, right? Because it's a different river and you're a different person.
Right. But I love that. Because you can get a different story every time. It's familiar to you, but it's always a different experience. And
yes,
I think it's fantastic. I think, we're human beings, or we're spirits having a human experience. Right. And that experience is going to change every single time you meet someone, every time you come to a fork in the road, every time you make a decision. It's always going to take you into a new experience. Might not always like the experiences.
No,
I think we talked about that today a little bit.
Right? I know. Yeah, when we talked earlier.
I know.
There's a wonderful quote by T.S. Eliot that goes, "We will never cease from exploration, but at the end of all our exploring," I know it's contradictory, but that's what he wrote.
Right.
"We will come to the place we started,
yes,
but we will know it for the very first time." Because life is cyclical.
That's right.
It's not linear. And so, it's a cycle, and you come back, but until you learn, obviously, but you're a different person. And so it comes back around, and and I see that now in my life. I mean, I just turned 67 this month.
No.
And I see the cycle of things, and I'm a different person now.
Right.
And so I see the same situation in a different way. And to me, that's growth. And that's what we're here to do. And so, but it's right there if you're aware of it, if your senses aren't dulled to it, if you haven't watched too much television or too much distraction or too much sport,
See, that's a tough one.
It numbs you.
Yes.
And that's why we meditate. That's why we have prayer time. That's why we have quiet time. So we can thaw out and see the synchronicities. Who was it? Kierkegaard says life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. And I mean, as I get older, I look at my life, through the trajectory, and I see things and, now I get that. I didn't see it at the time. You don't want to live in the past, but I go back and I go, that's what happened. That's when she came. That's when that had happened. That's when I messed that up. It's life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. And in order to understand it backwards, what do you have to do? You have to be still. You have to make the quiet time. You have to get away, walk on the beach, get in nature. You have to have all genuine spiritual traditions that talk about enlightenment and what have you. They always talk about the importance of silence. Because you can't, if you're around noise all the time and you're around noise in your head and in your heart, you can't hear the whisperings. You can't hear the message you're supposed to get from God or the force or your higher power, whatever you want to call it. So you have to slow down. You have to be still. You got to make time for that. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. Mish says a different person or more aware.
Right.
It's not either or, Mish. It's both. It's both. It's both. Because as you get older and as you grow, you are a different person. I'm still Michael, but Michael at 67 was different than the Michael at 50, the Michael at 30, the Michael at 16. And hopefully I'm more aware. It doesn't mean that it's not a given. You have to work at it. But, because people think that just because you grow older that you get mature. No, there's a lot of old fools out there. But if you're doing the work along the way, you can't help but change. You can't help but change if you say yes to life, if you're open to life. Who was it? Nietzsche said that if you can find out the why of life, then you can endure any how. Once I get why, the how I can work out.
Right. That's something, and like I said, sounds relatively easy. And I think for some of us, it's relatively easy. And for others, they're just, they just don't, they're either afraid to venture. Maybe the ego is keeping them from going, into enlightenment or finding some sort of way to spiritually evolve. Maybe they're afraid or not comfortable with the change, or that maybe they don't have a support system, or they can't resolve things within themselves to be able to go on. Maybe that they dislike about themselves.
But Michelle, yes, it could be all of that. But you know what? It took me lifetimes, or it took us lifetimes to get where we are today.
Yes.
There were lifetimes when we were like that. Right. And again, I want to be clear. I don't know it all or what have you. But I'm just saying sometimes, like if you were rich in one lifetime and you had to, maybe you just acted a fool and, so you got through that lifetime, but you had to go through that. Maybe it's none of all that. Maybe it's not that time for them to be. People are where they are. Maybe the next lifetime, or maybe in the next year or so. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we all had to grow. We all had to evolve. And so, maybe in another lifetime, I was a white male who, acted a fool and didn't know how to act, or maybe, so I come back as a person of color this lifetime. And maybe I needed that lifetime for that. Right, Mitch. Maybe it's not their path at the time. And that's okay because A, it keeps us from being judgmental. And B, it's because, remember, it's still kind of none of our business. It's none of our spiritual business. You know, I remember Marianne Williamson before she became Marianne Williamson. And, you know, I would go to her lectures in New York when I was living there, when I was a student of the Course of Miracles. And she said that if you truly have something to say or to teach, there's always going to be somebody who will need to hear it. Now, she didn't say everybody was going to hear it, but she said that. So I got from that if I'm trying to plant a seed, even if one person gets it, even if no one gets it, I'm planting my seed. I have something that I want to say, and the rest you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about, because A, you don't know who you've touched or who's listened to you, but that way there are no strings attached. When I go to church every Sunday to preach, if I can't worry about who doesn't get it or who gets angry or who leaves. All I say is, you know, this is my message this Sunday, and whoever's going to hear it's going to hear it. And that's good enough. You know, like you said, some people, they're not ready to hear it. Some people, it's ego. It's all of it. And I do the same thing. But I just say, I just put it out there, and the universe takes care of the rest. And so far, so good.
Right.
Yeah. But it keeps me from being, oh, they didn't get it, or what do they have to do? Or I get angry. I put it out there. If it resonates with you, the seed is planted. And if it doesn't, maybe next time, or maybe next lot, maybe not at all. But that way, I'm not in control of that.
Well, we're all in control of our own actions, so that would apply to them as well. So what's the difference then between, you know, you look at people of faith, let's say religion, and spirituality?
You know, that's an interesting thing. I go back and forth with that, because I don't believe that it's always a difference. One of my heroes growing up was Dr. King. Dr. King was a very religious man. And I didn't know, there's not anybody who can say he's not spiritual.
No, he's a great man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there are some people, when religion gets dogmatic, when it gets dysfunctional, when it gets, I'm better than you, I need to pray for you, you're not getting it. Oh, yes, there are other religions, but we know I belong to the real true religion. That's when you got a problem.
That's tough, right? Okay.
Whereas spirituality, you know, in the best sense of it, because there's some very spiritual people who are wrestling with ego, who still think they're better than others. But spirituality is, you don't have the dogma, you don't have the creeds, that you don't have the knee has to bow a certain way.
Not so institutionalized?
Well, it's not so rigid.
Okay.
It's not so rigid. And institutional, no, you can use that word, but all churches aren't. I'm in a Unitarian Universalist denomination. Rigid, we are not, but sometimes we are dogmatic in our liberalism. We may complain about other people, but we do the same thing. But there's more leeway. You don't need with spirituality, you don't need a priest, an imam, a minister that stand between you and all that is. There's a direct connection. Healthy religion teaches you that. Unhealthy religion is about control. It wants to keep you paying, praying, and obeying.
Well, many wars have been fought in the name of these types of religions, in the name of...
We're witnessing that now. Look what's going on in the Middle East. Look what's going on. These are religious wars. One could argue Ukraine is a religious war in some ways. And so that's why people, as you intimated, are leaving the church in droves, because they're tired of the hypocrisy. They're tired of the us versus them.
Do you
They're
think they're
tired.
looking for something bigger? They want
They're tired
real
of I'm
answers?
saved and you're not. They might not even know what they're looking for,
Right.
but they know that's not what they're looking for. I have friends who are atheists, and I have friends who are agnostic, and they will say, Michael, I don't know if there's a God, but I don't believe in the same God that these folks believe in.
Right.
So there's growth. I know what I don't want.
Right.
And so, and it's also kind of a personal journey. But the point is that I have come to believe, Michael has, I'm not saying the audience should, but I know what you believe by how you treat me. I know people who go to Bible study tonight. It's Wednesday. They'll be at the temple on Friday for Shabbat. They'll be they'll do all the right things. I'm in church all day on Sunday. I'm doing all that. But they will still treat you like something that stepped on the bottom of their shoe. But they're doing all the right things. And so I know what you believe by how you treat. I'll watch how you live. And yes, I'm not going to judge. I mean, people have bad days or whatever. But usually the way you live tells me what you believe. I can give you all this holier than thou stuff. But you're going to, that sounds great, Michael. And boy, he's so enlightened. But basically I want to see how the man lives his life. Then I'll know. A wise rabbi said that, right? 2,000 years ago, by their fruits, you shall know them. And because right now we're seeing a lot of people who claim a certain religion, but they're not really treating folks like that. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I've boiled it down to. I love it. Michael, I go to church every Sunday. Michael, I believe in UFOs. Michael, I believe in ghosts and metaphysics and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I think that's wonderful. But I'll know what you believe by how you treat your fellow human beings, how you treat sentient beings, how you treat non-sentient beings, how you treat the earth, how you treat the animal kingdom. That will tell me what you really believe. Because the way you live your life is your sermon. That's then I know what you believe in. Right. What you really believe in.
What makes up the person.
Your character, what you do with that. Yeah. That works for me. I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but there's precedent. I mean, Jesus of Nazareth says, and the Buddha talked about it 500 years before him. And you can go to Hinduism, which is that the way you live will tell me what I need to know about you, and vice versa. And vice versa.
It's again, it's tough because, like I say, wars are waged, and it's one of those things that you don't talk about politics or religion because it's going to get ugly either way, and it shouldn't be that way. I think with spiritualism or enlightenment, awareness, evolution, whatever the case may be, I think it's something that people want to talk about. I think it's something that people can connect with, to the consciousness. I mean, it's something that
I agree.
It shouldn't be deemed as a negative thing. And if it is, maybe you need to, people need to ask themselves, why is that?
No question. But the thing is this. We can talk about religion and politics, but I got to feel safe. And you got to feel safe with me that you're not going to try to convince me. You're not going to have to be right. That doesn't feel good when people do that. You want a safe space, and we can agree or disagree. And that takes time to develop that, to trust. I mean, I was on a podcast about a month ago, and this guy, and we were talking about exopolitics. I was talking about that in geopolitics and how they intertwine, now that we know that we're not alone. And the host all of a sudden went into, what are your politics? And I had to say, whoa, What does that have to do with this? Not that I didn't want, but I don't know you.
Right. That's a personal thing.
It is personal, and
Right.
that's not why we're on the show. And if it happens to come up, yeah. But it's something that you want to work your way into. But we do have to talk about it at some point. And you just want to be able to do that with someone that you can trust. Someone's not going to be so judgmental. Someone who's not going to try and pull you over to their side or condemn
because it's
you.
ugly. It's really ugly right now.
It's just an icky feeling when that happens with people.
Right. So, okay. So let's sidetrack for just a quick moment.
Yeah.
Dealing with religion and faith and so on. Let's sidetrack for just a moment with extraterrestrials, because the Catholic Church are trying to prepare their flock.
Yes.
For when this happens.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, extraterrestrials on an average, ET, or whether they're terrestrial, because I truly believe there are many here. I mean, on an average, it's the fear-mongering is fear-mongering. They're very enlightened individuals as well. I mean, they're like anybody. You have your good, you have your bad. But, I mean, there are tons and tons of stories. I mean, Preston Dennett writes about obscene amounts of positive stories with contact. They're miles ahead of us with enlightenment and awareness and spirituality on many levels. Do you think we need preparing for them? Maybe it should be the other way around.
Well, when you start off with lies, and I'm not gonna, I get it.
Yeah.
Then you have to keep lying.
Right.
And now it's time for truth telling.
Right.
And now you have to monitor how that comes out.
Right.
And so
you're so eloquent.
Yeah. Well, wait, no, it's a family audience.
Right.
No, now I will say this. I was not raised Catholic.
Right.
At least not in this lifetime. I have a fascination with the Catholic Church and the Vatican. I read a lot about it and what have you. But the Catholic Church, I'm a Protestant minister. I mean, Unitarian Universalism is part of the Protestant Reformation. Outside of the late, not late, outside of Barry Downing, my friend and colleague, who started talking about this back in '68, I don't see a lot of Protestant ministers talking about this. The few Protestants that do talk about it in a demonic sort of thing. But I'm talking about clergy. I don't know many people who do. The Catholic Church, for all of its faults, for all of its issues, they have been open about telling people about the possibility of, paleo contact in ancient civilizations, and that we live in a populated universe. I tip my hat, and I don't wear a hat. I tip my hat to them. Pope Benedict in 2009, he's the most conservative pope in my lifetime, right before Francis. He came out in 2009 and said that the extraterrestrials were all in the Bible. He also came out and said that Yahweh is not the name for God. This is a pope saying this in 2009. You have Monsignor Balladucci, I forget the long title, but basically the Pope exorcist who did, the foreword to Whitley Strieber's book, Confirmation, who comes out. I forget, Father, he's with the Vatican, he's with the Vatican Observatory. I mean, he's a Jesuit.
Yes.
His name. I have it written down, but anyway, they're putting it out there. I give them credit for that. I think that they have to go slow.
It's their own form of evolution.
Well, because
awakening.
When I say that we live in a populated universe, you automatically have to say, what does that mean about my belief in God?
Mm.
You have to.
Mhm.
And, people, you got to be careful how you roll that out. Are you taking away faith? When I talk about the Old Testament and I say, I cannot find a God in that Bible, the Jewish people are going to say, who the hell do you think you are? What do I'm not trying, am I taking away faith? But I'm just going by my own research. Well, it's easier to talk about tech, and you can talk about there's a national security threat. Yeah, I get it.
Mm. Mm.
You can talk about that. It's easy to
Sure.
talk about tech and the military and what have you. It's easy to talk about that than it is to talk about, oh boy, you mean to tell me I've been believing for 40 years in this God, and now Reverend Carter and these other people are starting what? So it's not coming as fast as we want, but
It's coming.
it's coming, and that's going to be the big $100,000 question. And who has answers for that? Is there a God? I think there is, but
I
it's not
believe in
the
a
one I was
creator,
brought
a
up with.
source.
It's not the
Right.
one. Yeah, I don't even like to use the word God because it has so much baggage, but I'm
Mhm.
using it.
Mhm.
But when I talk to people, I always say, "What's your idea of God?" Because I say God, and I'm thinking one thing, and you may hear it a different way. But you can call it what you want.
Right.
And the Bible tells us, Mesopotamian texts tell us, the Babylonian, the Akkadian texts, they tell us that there are extraterrestrials who were not big fans of Earth, that just wanted to use us for our resources,
Yes.
that just wanted to keep us so ignorant we didn't even know we were naked. And then there's another group of extraterrestrials who kind of helped jumpstart civilization, who taught us how to make beer, who taught us, Ben Franklin
Yes.
said that's God's way of saying he loves us. Beer. Taught us,
Right.
these plants are good for consciousness. These are poisonous. How does jumpstart civilization? Telling our Miriam and Elizabeth that we are pregnant. They helped Daniel out of the lion's den. Okay, there were some who came to help us out, or to at least kind of nudge us a certain way. So, and like you said, there's some more conscious than others, because just because you have technology doesn't necessarily mean you're spiritual. Look at the United States of America. But so there's nuances. But what we've been, as you said earlier, we're getting the fear, national security. They're shutting down our nuclear silos. They're shutting down. You got to be afraid, and you got to be able to say, well, wait a minute now. Yes, there may be some that is something. But there's
two sides to the coin. Right?
There's three sides to the story: yours,
Yeah.
mine, and the truth.
That's right.
And there's some people who are saying we're shutting them down, fools, so you don't destroy yourselves. But it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it?
It is. It is. So, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I almost feel like we should be warning them. You see all these memes out there going, "Oh boy, nobody wants to drive by Earth."
Right,
It's
but
like,
they some of them created us, so
exactly.
you're gonna drop by and see how your little experiment is
We're the
doing.
kids in the sandbox, and we're being
Yes.
monitored.
Yes,
And
I mean, according to Aboriginal stories,
yes,
according
yes,
to
yes.
the Mesopotamian text, the Bible, these gods created us.
That's hard. See, this is where we're mixing when you're getting into religion again, and not like I don't look at Gnosticism and because I really lean back towards Gnosticism. I've had
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
Templar lineage, and darn it, they're
Mhm.
Gnostics, and I
Sure.
just, I do. They like many ancient people. They were aware of the stars. They were aware of beings from the stars. They were aware
Mhm.
of so much. It's just
You're
educated
right.
themselves in that
You
way.
are right.
And I just It's tough because when you have other religions, like you're looking at the Old Testament and Book of Enoch being deliberately left out of, the New Testament, and it talks
Yep.
about extraterrestrials. I mean, Ezekiel's
Yep.
wheel.
Have it right here.
Say hello. Exactly. See, I knew you'd have a copy for sure.
Oh, it's all around me. But
Well,
go on. Go on. I'm listening.
Well, I always say,
you're speaking truth here.
yeah. And I always say, coming to religion, it's like, no, we can't talk about this. What, that Enoch may have been your very first hybrid donor, technically speaking.
Well, there's Elijah.
Elijah,
Well,
Ezekiel.
But see, we can have the conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm not telling you you're wrong.
No.
I'm not trying to pull you, and that's what a conversation is. It's a give and take. Now, our conversation is we both agree on this because we both researched and studied it. But that's what makes it a safe place. And you can't always control your environment. But for instance, I talk about extraterrestrials, right? I do some TV stuff. I do stuff. So it's kind of out there, but I don't bring this up in my daily life talking to people. I just don't start talking about it. And if I'm very, selective if I bring it up at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
There are some people when it comes to like the staunch religion, religious people, like, oh no, ghosts are one thing. I cannot venture into the land of extraterrestrials.
Sure.
Even though it's in the Bible.
That. Well, yeah. But that's okay.
Yeah.
But I know some people, they don't have that discernment. It's like, I got this truth and I got to share it with everybody.
Right.
I don't think that's wise, but that doesn't work for me. It can be off-putting. So, it's all about nuance. It's all about what you feel comfortable doing. You can talk. Listen, I got news for you. I grew up in the 50s, late 50s. I was born in 57. So actually I grew up in the 60s. And people said you should never talk politics and religion.
That's yes.
And then you get it that if you don't talk about it, we're going to kill each other. But you pick and choose. You pick and choose who you bring it up with, who you talk about with. You don't have to shout it from a rooftop. And I'm not saying don't shout your truth, but there is such a thing as discernment. What's the old saying? That knowledge is knowing, what to say. Wisdom is knowing when to say it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Knowledge is knowing what to say. Wisdom is knowing when to say it.
Right.
And there are some things, and I have people in my family I cannot talk about religion with. I cannot talk about UFOs with. I cannot talk about politics with. And so you know what? I love them to death. I just don't talk about it.
Right. Pretty black and white. That's it. Nice and easy. Yeah.
I don't have to make them see my truth. I don't have to make them say, you got to vote for this one because this one. I don't have to do that.
Right.
We can't talk about that. So that's a small part of who we are.
Right.
I love you. Let's talk about something else.
Right.
But if you got to be right, then that's going to be hard for you to do.
Right.
Because I got to be right.
And that brings us back.
Yes. I got to make you see that Trump's no good. I got to make you see that Biden's no good. No, all I got to do is live my life.
Right.
But if you got to be right, it's hard to keep your mouth shut because you got to.
And that comes back to enlightenment.
You got to convince people. Yes. It comes back to knowing what to say, and it comes back to knowing when to say it.
Right. And so let's talk about saying and speaking and words. Because some people look at words really are, in a way, like casting spells. They can be like daggers, or they can be like butterflies. Just your vibe. Words are so powerful. And I think sometimes people forget just how powerful that intention can be. It goes beyond just words. It's intention. You can do so much harm, or you can totally make someone's day just with a kind word and a beautiful intention. So let's talk about about words. Some people will tell you that spell casting isn't that much different than prayer. I thought, ooh, that's very harsh. You know, we've had well, prayer, different intention. I guess it comes back to intention.
Everything does.
You can pray for bad things just as easily as you can pray for good things, right?
Right, and you can cast spells for bad things just like you can.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's all about your intention. It's all about intentionality. I think Wayne Dwyer wrote a book about the power of your intentions.
Yes.
And so, yes, we all know spiritual paths, whether it's Buddhism or Christianity, that talk about, I forgot, there's the 3 gates your word should go to. Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it before you utter things?
Yes.
Buddhism talks about right speech. Of course, Christianity talks about, all genuine paths talk about it. And I guess they're saying a closed mouth gathers no foot. But yes, words are powerful. And once you say something, sometimes, yes, thank you, Wayne, that sometimes you say things you can't take back, because once it's out there, it's out there. So, you choose your words wisely. I mean, you said to me, we were jokingly, Michael, you're being very eloquent, because, you have to choose your words wisely.
Yes.
You don't want to say things, but that's growth, I think. And that's maturity. That's what diplomats do. You know what I mean? I mean, and there's a place for diplomacy. Diplomacy doesn't mean duplicity. At least, you don't want it to mean that. You want people to believe what you're saying. I give you an example.
Okay.
There's a guy in my church who gave his word. We changed something in the congregation, the liturgy, and it wasn't popular with everybody, but most of the church liked it. So they were like, no, the board of trustees, no, and with the minister, myself, no, Michael, we want to have a vote on this. So we did. And he said, if we have a vote and my side gets outvoted, I will drop it. Okay? So his side got outvoted and he won't drop it. And when I brought it up to him, he said, yeah, I did say that, but I didn't realize how strongly I felt about it. Okay. But what happens is now I can't trust you because you gave your word.
Right.
You use your words. And that's what's sad, that now I can't trust you. Not just me, because you gave your word. And not only did you break it, but you don't have any qualms about it. Yeah, I said that, but I didn't know. So how do I know that if you say something else, that you may change? So I mean, that's a little parable, a little story about it, but that's how powerful words are. Once you say, I'm going to do something, and then you don't do it. Now we're talking about a community now. We're talking about church. And then and now you don't even feel bad about it. There's no a self-awareness. I'm sure other people, I can't trust you because I can't trust your word.
That's difficult. I mean, it goes back in the day, the gentleman's handshake. It meant something. I was raised to believe that your word is the one thing that belongs to you. You alone are in control of that. So if you give your word and you fall back on your word, then that's an integrity thing as well. And you can't be trusted. It's the only thing that you have that's yours. Nobody could take it from you. So stand by it, honor it, because that's the one thing in life that is truly yours, is your integrity and your word.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you can't change your mind. Then you come and talk. But if you say, because in this context, it was a vote and you got outvoted. And so the thing is, so what you're saying is, I don't care that I was outvoted.
Right.
It's not legit because I'm not getting what I want.
Right.
Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. It's a tough one because I think we as people, we don't think about it. You know, sometimes you speak now and you realize later, like your mouth got ahead of your brain. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, and you can cause a lot of damage with stuff like that. So
yeah, well, what's the old saying? There's an old saying that never make promises when you're too happy
mm-hmm.
or too depressed or
Right.
too sad. You know what I mean? And you know, because you get excited and yeah, let's do that. I'm going to do that, and then you know,
and it goes so wrong.
what did I say? Why? I'm not going to do that kind of thing. But words, but to your point, and which is well taken, words are powerful, and that's all we have. We have our actions, of course,
right?
But to communicate, that's all we have. So if you say you're going to do something, and of course you can change your mind, but if it's like a vote or something, and again, in this context, you've been outvoted, and now, I don't care about the vote. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Well, that's problematic, isn't it?
Right. It's a tough one. So let's talk about, we talked about spirituality, we've talked about awareness, we've talked about enlightenment. What about having an awakening, a spiritual awakening, which furthers our own spiritual evolution, which does in the end enlighten to us. We lead to enlightenment, peace, tranquility, just mindfulness, zen, just, zen out, just feel like $1 million all the time, high vibes, the whole 9 yards, in a nice, natural way.
I love that. Zen and $1 million. That's interesting contrast. Yeah.
No, oxymoron, it's great.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. I'm just
So I think breaking free of habits and conditioning, that's maybe the first hurdle, because there's many hurdles to this. There's breaking free of habits and conditioning, afraid, maybe uncomfortable with change, having resolution, resistance, again, fear of losing maybe friends, family, or relationships, because I think you're at a point where you can say, okay, my family, I can't talk about all this stuff, so we just talk about something else. But I think people who are maybe trying to awaken, and they're just trying to find their place with it, and they don't have everybody on board with them, so they feel somewhat alone, because people are conditioned. This is our staunch belief system. We were taught by our parents. My parents are taught by their parents. I've taught my children, much like what I had mentioned before. So it's really hard to get away from the conditioning. How do you just start with that? You just get up one day and say, damn it, I'm just going to meditate. I'm just going for it. Is it that simple, or is there what you have to do first?
Well, no, I don't think it's a formula, because it's different for everybody. If we go back to the initial part of your question, a spiritual awakening, you want to define what you mean by spiritual, because that's a word like love, that it can mean so many different things. When I talk about being spiritual, I'm talking about your interior life. How do you cultivate that? Meditation, prayer, being in nature. It's where I stand. Where I stand in the universe, where I draw my line in the sand, what I believe, what I will stand for. That's your spirituality. That's your identity. So how can that experience happen? It can happen from a near-death experience. My God, the Hindus, it can come from an orgasm with tantric sex. It can come from jogging. It can come from meditation. It can come in so many different ways. And then it will behoove you of how you handle that. You may handle it one way, I may handle it, so there's no formula. But what happens is, at least in my case, that there was a part of me gradually that a caterpillar was becoming a butterfly. you break free of the conditioning because you can't go back. Whether you've seen a gray or praying mantis, whether you died for 10 minutes and came back, whether you had a tantric experience doing lovemaking, you've had that experience. And once you get the glimpse that, man, it's so much more to this, then it's hard for you to go back. So yeah, so that's there. Well, you can, especially now in these days and times, you can seek out other like-minded people.
Right.
You can go to a 12-step program. You can go online. You can go to a therapist. You can go to a spiritual director. You have many more outlets now to be around more like-minded people. So you don't have to be alone. You don't have to be alone. And then with that guidance and with trusting your own intuition and insights, because now you got insights,
right?
You can start navigating your way to, you create your own kind of family. You create your own type of environment because this is who you are. But I don't think there's a formula for it in the sense of everybody comes to it. I was reading about a therapist who was jogging in San Francisco early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning, and they had an experience just watching the sun come up. And he said, all of a sudden, just in my very molecules, I was watching the sun come up and I felt this oneness, like I was out of my body and I was part of everything, the rocks, the trees, the ocean, the sun, and blah, blah, blah. Now, he couldn't sustain that and he came back and that changed him.
Wow.
You
so
know,
it could be just like a simple little experience in the day that
you could
puts
hear
the
something.
light bulb on. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And
a
then
song, anything.
a song. I mean, I wrote my book in Initiation, the Spiritual Transformation of the Experiencer.
Right.
When I wrote that book, there were things to help you say, okay, this is real. I'm not crazy, that kind of thing. But it's almost unique for the personality that it happens to,
Right.
because we all react to it in a different way. Mrs. says, awareness comes from knowing you need change, or does change come from knowing you need awareness?
Ah, yeah.
You know?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you don't want to get into the paralysis of analysis there. I'm just
Right.
looking at another way to look at it. But we all know that change is what life is about. You may not like it, but we know that's the only constant.
The
And
fear of
so,
the unknown is very real,
you go to that. Buddhism talks about it. I've been reading a lot of Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosophy, that the only constant is change. And once you are comfortable with it, no one says you have to like it, but once you're comfortable with it, that this is life, then you can navigate it.
Yeah, because you're dealing a little bit with the loss of your identity in some ways when you're sort of like shedding your skin, leaving behind.
Well, you're getting rid of a false identity.
Oh, for sure. Some people have a very hard time like separating the two. They don't realize that you can just, it's kind of like getting an upgrade, right? You don't have to lose yourself. You just have to evolve.
Which is gaining
why
yourself.
we're here, right?
Because you're gaining. I found out that most of the things that I was taught about who I was wrong, and how the world worked was wrong.
Okay.
And I was, and also people were giving me their ideas about who they thought I was going to be. And it was about me finding out who I am. But that's the hero's journey. That's the shero's journey. That's what you're here to do, each and every one of us. It may take longer. And you can read about the Buddha, you can read about Jesus. Each step of the way, they were finding out who they were. And they give examples. There are other examples, whether it's Joan of Arc, whether it's Mother Teresa, whether it's the guy down or the girl down the street, that the journey is about shedding this false self and saying, you know what, that's really not me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the quest is, who am I? Why am I here? What is my mission? No one can tell you that but you, but you can have help along the way. And that help can come from the seen and the unseen worlds. But we're all on that journey. And whether you do it this lifetime or what, it gets done.
So do you shed the old patterns and beliefs, or do you incorporate them? Do you change them? Because we all have belief systems and we all follow patterns. So do we leave that behind, or do we incorporate that?
No, you don't have to give up. You know, when you paint, when you're going to do a painting, right? It's broad strokes, broad. You're making the big changes. But then as it starts to come in, you tweak it here. I'll make that tree a little this color, and I'll put that. Yeah, and that's the same thing with your life, because your life is your canvas.
Right.
You want to shed the things that don't serve you anymore, which are the fears, the prejudices, the judgments. You want to shed those.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's why we go back and read old books. That's why we go back and read scriptures, or we go back to wizards and witches and what have you. There's nothing more compelling than a life well lived. And you can go back and find people who resonate with you and look how they live their life. And you can learn from that and say, you know what, that's what I want to be like. I mean, I'm going to wear it differently because I'm different. But I want to take some Dr. King's compassion and forgiveness. I'm going to look at that. I want to have the courage of my convictions like Joan of Arc. I like what Mandela did there about how to deal with power. And you know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have examples out here. You just have to tap into them, and you make it your own, just like they did. Just like they did.
Right. On that note, we are going to do a really quick station and sponsor ID. For those of you who are just tuning in, you are listening to The Outer Realm with myself, Michelle Desrochers, minus my bubbly companion, Amelia Pisano. And we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are, of course, fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee. Thank you, Folgers. We're also sponsored by Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, award-winning composer. Thank you very much for your contribution of your time, your music, and your voice for our intro. Also, thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind our banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. And we are speaking with our dear friend, Reverend Michael Carter, and we are talking about enlightenment, spirituality, awareness, evolution, everything that
and Folgers in your cup.
Right here. Yeah. Okay. And I'm gonna be a heartbeat, people. I'm still waiting for commercials.
I remember that. I remember that commercial. Folgers in your cup.
It's great. People love Folgers. I tell people, do us a little commercial, 30 to 50 seconds, because this goes on to over 200 different archive sites. It will be there forever. So talk about Folgers and talk about what you want to promote. This is my book. This is my team. This is whatever the case may be, because it stays there forever. It's like mega free advertising.
I love it.
We just want a little clip to share with the world. And Folgers actually watches. We have folks at Folgers who actually watch the show, and they love it.
Well, they love my little song.
They will, and they'll see your little song. There we go.
I remember Folgers in your cup in the morning. But I know we digress. We digress. But and if we go back to what you started with at the top of the first hour, Michelle, I give an example, and this is putting people in boxes, always being surprised, but it's a little different with this guy. There's a guy, I see him at the gym. I swim. he works out. He's about 60, 70s. He's got some aches and pains. And what drew me to him is because I moved down here from New York, and he lived in New York, and he's got a really heavy New York accent.
Right.
The D's, Dems, and Don'ts, and have a cup of coffee, and let's talk, Michael. We'll have coffee talk. And so, and he's a blue collar guy, big guy, muscle, construction, that kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting in the whirlpool with him, and I'm listening to this accent, because you don't hear that accent down here where I live in North Carolina. And he goes on this riff, and I had to go to work, so I couldn't stay long. And he was talking about ancient civilizations, hieroglyphs, Atlantis, and he was doing all this in a heavy Brooklyn accent. And when you're looking at him, you would say, that's not coming out of his mouth.
Right.
Okay. If you put him in a box, which I did.
Right.
And I was fascinated. And so I listened for about really 8 minutes, 10 minutes, because I really had to get to work. But aside from the fact, from judging this man, how he looks.
Right.
He was talking ancient wisdom that he reads. He said, my son takes mescaline to unleash, he takes mushrooms and all this. He says, but I don't do that. I'm too old for that, and I'm scared of it. He said, I got this from reading and just studying. But I mean, here's a guy in his 70s, blue collar guy, worked hard. I think he said he used to be a boxer too at one point. And he's talking about Atlantis. He's talking quantum physics. He's talking ancient wisdom from ancient civilizations. So, everybody know, but there's a consciousness going around, and people are saying one thing: the old way of doing things doesn't work anymore.
Right.
We've got to try something new. Mm-hmm. And that's the change in consciousness.
Do you think it's happening right now? Do you think
I know it is.
Consciousness is?
I know it is. CNN is not going to put it on. Fox is not going to put it on. MSNBC, because they can't put it on. They've got to stay within the confines.
Yes.
But when you read about what's going on, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's South Africa, people are saying, the common people are saying to their governments, we can't keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
We can't keep having 1% owning everything. We can't keep having militaristic government. We can't have women have to be in control of their own bodies. We want health care. I just want education that's going on everywhere.
Mm. Mm.
And it's a consciousness that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's messy. It's scary because things are changing and people are going to hold on to old ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to stay in the 50s. Some people want to stay fighting the Cold War, and they're going to hold on for dear life, and they're going to fight. But Victor Hugo reminds us, there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Hmm.
And you'll be a dinosaur. It will roll right over you. And we happen to be living in those times. We're living in the age of Aquarius. Early on, we've left the age of Pisces, where God is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Where the kingdom, God is in you.
Mm-hmm.
And Aquarius is about diversity, difference,
mm-hmm.
and it's about technology.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the world we're going into now.
It's exciting, but it's frightening. When I say technology, to me, we're getting into artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been warned by great minds moving forward that this would not be a good idea. But you know how we're being integrated into it. is like, for example, facial recognition. You look at all those cute little games that we play on social media. Yeah, let's get a look at your face and see if it
Well,
drives up with this.
my phone has, you know, I can look at
Yes.
it and it comes on. Yeah,
That's
it's
true.
all
But some of
around
us,
us.
like, we don't
It's been with us all
selfies.
this time. You
Yes.
know, whether you know, it's you know, turn the light on and like, but see, the thing is, I don't think AI is bad. It's like I don't think money's bad. I
Right.
think it's the intent behind it. We don't have the maturity. I mean, you have people already having lawsuits around racial justice or injustice or whatever because we programmed the AI with our prejudices and our racism
Mhm.
and our misogyny. So already people, their lawsuits going up. So it's not the AI, it's the consciousness that's programming it. It's the
Mhm.
same thing with money. Money's not the root of all evil. I know deeply spiritual people who are extremely wealthy. It's
Mhm.
the intent. It's what I'm using it for.
Mhm.
And we just happen to be in a time where there's more knowledge than wisdom. We mistake the two.
Right.
Knowledge is not wisdom. Knowledge applied can be wisdom, but it's not wisdom. And you got people who don't like women, don't like religion, don't like people of color, and they're programming AI.
But
And
the
they're
thing is
programming
you
their
said it
stuff
right.
right into it.
More technology than wisdom, which means eventually can the
Well, yeah.
technology overcome the lack of wisdom?
Well, we'll wind up we could wind up destroying ourselves either way. But if you go to, you remember the civilizations, level 1 civilization, level 2 civilization,
Mhm.
you have to master technology. That's the beauty. You said at the top of the second hour, the top of the hour, about some of these beings who have this technology and they're deeply spiritual. So you can do both.
Right.
You know that you said that yourself. You can
Yeah,
do
highly
both.
evolved. I think you're highly evolved.
But the thing is that are we at that level now? It doesn't look like we are. But to evolve, to become the next level civilization, we'll have to be comfortable. And that doesn't mean we won't blow ourselves up and we start over again. But to go to the next level of civilization, we have to be comfortable with AI because that's where it's headed. That's where we're headed.
Do you think that there were a lot of ancient cultures that hid their technology that are still buried somewhere here on this planet? And I say that because I look at Göbekli Tepe, which they buried everything, and then then they disappeared. Whether they went up, whether the flood got them, whatever the case may be, 12,000 years ago, a culture.
Well, that's what's going to happen with us.
Right.
We'll be forgotten. But
it
yeah,
was
I mean,
they deliberately buried their
yeah,
the
it
whole.
looks like it. It looks like
And
they have. We did a show on it.
you know that the WEF actually struck a deal with the Turkish government. I believe is in Turkey, and no archaeology, nothing for something like 25 years. They are putting and growing things over top of it. They don't want anybody near it. And there are levels and chambers, and they believe it could have been a ritualistic place as well. But it's like it's being hidden.
Sure, because the technology, because when governments get a hand on that technology, they have a militaristic advantage. We hear these stories coming out of Iraq about soldiers who thought they were going over there to topple a regime, and they wound up protecting archaeological sites because there were stargates. And so you wonder what was it about toppling Saddam, or was it about getting over there and going to where those stargates and everything was? We don't know.
But that's not an organization I would want hiding anything like that.
But I mean, but I'm going
It's
back
happening.
to your question.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what we want. You get the technology, and let's face it, you control the world.
Right, or hide it. You hide
Well,
it.
yeah, but I mean, I'm hiding it because I'm keeping it for myself.
Right.
I'm hiding it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Because you wind up having an advantage, at least militarily. Yeah.
See, that's what I wanted to go there, because we're talking about, as a civilization, to evolve and advance, we have to embrace the technology. And it seems that there were ancient cultures that did the same thing.
Yeah.
And either when they were done with
Atlantis,
it or when they left the area, they hide
Egypt.
it from. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there could be incredible. I think Antarctica is one of those places, incredible technology hidden somewhere from ancient civilizations that all of a sudden, like, and again, it goes back to what we were talking about, something that's, new for us as a civilization, but it's old.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, you want to learn something new, go back to the old, read an old book.
History has a way of repeating itself as well, which can be a little
especially when you don't learn from it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, we can learn from ancient traditions with respects to spiritual growth and evolution and such. Do you think we're here? This is our job, is to reach that point and keep going. We have to evolve to be able to get to higher density.
Yeah. But I don't think it has to be as intentional. As you say, I mean, intentionality helps. There's that word again. But life goes that way.
Yes.
Life goes that way. You can fight it, you can prolong it, but life will go. Life does not go backwards. Life goes forwards. And so for people who are still hanging on, that doesn't mean that you can hang on for tens of thousands, 100,000 years, but life is always going forward and it will run over you. Now, if you want to be intentional and say, why would I fight this? Let me risk growing and learning and being uncomfortable. You know, I'm finishing up, I'm rereading a book on Plato. And the thing is, you know, there were a lot of people who didn't like Plato or Jesus or any of these folks because what they're asking you to do is to be uncomfortable, to look at yourself, to examine your life. Nobody wants to do that because it's painful at times, you know? And so that's why people aren't flocking to do these things.
No, you've got to resolve within yourself.
But the people that are, it's worth the effort. It's worth the effort. But it is a journey. And, you know, you're going to see yourself warts and all. And that's part of it. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, they're just not ready to do that right now. And that's okay. Those are the people who help us grow. Because rather than judge them and go, what's wrong with you? Aren't you getting it? I got it. What'd you do? You can say, you know what? I was like that at one time. And I'm not talking about when I was if I was a soldier in the Roman army or, you know, I'm not talking about, I'm not being that esoteric, even though that's probably, that could have happened. I'm just saying, you know, I didn't come to where I am now. I didn't come out of my mother's womb like this. I acted a fool. I hurt people probably intentionally and unintentionally. I did dumb things. You know, I was self-destructive. And so when I remember that, it keeps me from being so holier than thou. You know, it's like Socrates or Plato, one of them said, you know, I'm wise because I know that I know nothing. That what I know is a drop in the bucket. And once I realize that, that's half the battle.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because
completely.
most of the time we get upset, you, me, people, we get upset because people aren't living life the way we think they should. I mean, if we're going to be honest, I wouldn't have done it that way. I've done that before. You don't have to do. And we get upset because we're not in control. And so, now I got this angst. The world's not behaving the way I used to think it should. You know, they're not voting the way I think they should. You know, and when you can step back for that and just say it's okay. It's nothing's in control, but except my journey.
What about people, Michael, who are not participants in life or their own life? Because
But they are participants. They are.
Well, this is a
not
term
not making a choice is a choice.
Right.
So
I just feel that it's a term that comes up a lot lately is because some people, and I know because I know people who they're not interested in leaving the house, or they just don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
They want to be taken care of.
Yeah.
They don't want to do anything. And I'm like, you have to get up and do something. You have to participate in your life. Do something.
No, they don't. See, that's what we just talked about.
Okay. So that's
their choice. And what happens is it triggers you because you're saying, well, you got to do something with your life. No,
but then they're mad because you're not doing anything. Like, well, this never happens, or I never get to do this. I'm thinking,
but it's their life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Double-edged sword.
It's their life. They don't have to do anything. Right. You have to do something with your life.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be funny. And I know you're going to say it's tough, but tough doesn't mean it can't be done.
Right.
But yeah, when you let people, not if they're going to hurt you but that's a choice in their life. And if they don't want to come out of the house, hey, have a great day.
Mm-hmm.
And you go on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's none of your business, really. It's none of your business.
Right.
If you're saying I want to have my best life. They're saying this is my best life. Or I don't want to do it. And we don't know why. Maybe they have some phobia. But it doesn't matter why. Only thing that matters is that you're taking care of your business.
Mm-hmm. So
I tell you what, you will have so much energy for your life. You'll have less stress. And listen, there'll be times where it does bug you. I'm not saying I do this all the time, but I do it a lot. And it just makes my life easier.
And the more you do it, the easier it
gets. Let people make their mistakes. And I can say, you know what, Michelle, I've done that before. You may not want to do it that way. Can I suggest something? You may say, yeah, and I do it. Or you may say, no, Michael, this is the way I want to do it. Either way, I'm like, okay, you got to do it. And sometimes you have to make mistakes. It's your journey. Mm-hmm. But if I give it and get mad because you don't do it, then I'm not giving you a gift. I'm giving you control.
Mm-hmm.
A buddy of mine, he's in his 80s. On our honeymoon a year or so ago, we went to the British Virgin Islands. He used to live there. And he had all this, he gave us all these things, places you can go. But when we got there, it was just so much running around. We decided we're going to do our own rhythm. And a year later, he's still upset because we didn't take his advice. Now, I said, well, you shouldn't have gave the advice because there's strings attached. You suggested places. We decided we wanted to do something else. Why not be happy for that? But a year later, I'm not exaggerating. He said, no, he brought it up twice. I said, look, I don't want to hear this anymore. This was a year ago, but you're not giving me anything because what you said, it's control.
Mm-hmm.
You gave me some suggestions. And we decided to do something else.
Right.
But that's what I mean about control.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been, of course, an amazing conversation. It always is.
It is. It's always good to see you, Michelle.
Thank you.
It really, really is.
Thank you.
I'm really fond of you and being on the show. And I know Amelia's not. We'll catch up with her. But it's always.
I said to her, so he'll be back.
Yeah. We'll do something in the next couple of months or something.
Wow.
But it's always time well spent. It's stimulating. You know your stuff. You're professional.
Thank you.
I mean, it's how can you not like it? And you get me going. You get me stimulated. And it was good, refreshing that we talked about a lot of things and not just UFOs. I love talking about it. The Bible, I love it.
You've talked about all kinds of things.
Yeah,
it's always interesting. Your wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, and it's always interesting. We just have a way of being able to pull everything in. But that's what I'm saying, especially with this topic this evening, I feel that everything connects.
Yeah. And, your audience is very evolved. Your audience is very curious. Your audience is they're there, and that makes it a great give and take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I will leave it with this. Wayne says, live and let live is not just a saying. Some people find enlightenment when they are 5 years of age, whereas others find it on their deathbed.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And some don't find it at all this time, but
Yeah.
it's
All right.
continuous, so it works out.
But tell us where to find your book. Where can people find it?
You can go on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, but just go to Amazon, type in Reverend Michael JS.Carter, and all my books should come up. If you want to write me, michaeljscarter@gmail.com. My Facebook page is Reverend Michael J. Carter. And I will get back to you. I don't use, my website often, but if you that's michaeljscarter.com. But if you write me, I promise you I will get back to you. Thanks for your support. I think you'll love the book. I think you'll love all the books. And thanks for taking time out and of your busy life and evening and spending some time.
Well, thank you. And just for those of you who just go into the show write-up, on YouTube, you will find a link to the book on Amazon and all of Michael's other books as well. So if you're in Michael's social media, it's all there for you guys to just click on it. Nice and easy. I know. See, I'm one of those people. I'm not one of those people when I'm posting up the show and getting things ready where I have to hide all the information so nobody else snags you. I want to see you do everybody's shows. We'd love to see our guests just go everywhere, because that is what this is about. It's about spreading information and knowledge.
I agree.
Right. And
Yes.
this is definitely something that I think it is refreshing. It's nice to see something so lighthearted getting out there. So it's not all gloom and doom and conspiracy and just, spooky stuff. And it's just something really, really lighthearted.
I couldn't agree more. And I just want to tell people, it's going to be some crazy times coming up. We got elections coming up. Hopefully more disclosure stuff will be coming up, but just don't get afraid. Don't be afraid. Try not to do that. And that when fear knocks at the door and when love answers, nobody's there.
And we'll leave it right there. Nice.
Don't be afraid.
Nice, simple, and I love it.
Yes.
Well, Michael, thank you for joining me this evening.
Let's do it again.
Nice. We will. I'll be in touch and we'll brainstorm and we'll book you, because we are booking, a couple of months ahead.
Listen, let me know. It keeps me off the streets.
Okay. That sounds good.
I need something to do when I get out of church. So book me. Book me, please.
You will hear from me.
Okay.
All right.
Blessings to everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye,
Good
Michelle.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Always a pleasure to have on the show. Always. And I love this lighthearted conversation. It was just such a nice change of pace. But we've come to the end of another awesome segment here on The Outer Realm. Hoping Amelia feels better. Hoping everybody is doing well. It's just been a couple of weeks, let me tell you. But anyway, thank you to Reverend Michael Carter for joining us and talking to us about this incredible book of his. Thank you to Folgers Coffee. Thank you to Justin Snicker, Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We appreciate your support and we thank you for it. Also, guys, the network is on Roku, so check us out there as well. Watch for the archives. I believe Amazon is coming up, but through Fire Stick, something like that. It's just a weird thing, but I think it's going to be a thing coming up as well. Tomorrow night, we welcome back our dear friend, Dr. Rita Louise, and we're going to start bringing back some of our favorite guests from the Wayback Machine, and we're going to re-examine some of those topics that people really loved. And we're going to have a lot of new stuff along the way. And she's going to be discussing one of those topics. It's her book called E.T. Chronicles. That's going to be amazing because I enjoyed it, the first time around. And I know it is just so much more interesting stuff that we didn't get to cover then. So I wish you guys a really good evening. I will see you tomorrow night. I'm not sure if Amelia will be well enough to join us or not, perhaps. But in the meantime, I will leave you with our second nominee. Let me just get in there and grab it, and then we'll be signing off. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's a show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in 3 categories: education, storyteller and drama, and arts. For 5 years and with over 280 weekly episodes and 64 million plus downloads, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals. It is based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age, race, ethnicity, or gender. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. We are all busy, but I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment and vote now. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all 3 of the categories: education, storyteller drama, or art.